One of the nation's biggest and riskiest industries is dressing the American woman, an industry which is based upon the ever-shifting tastes of 50 million customers who spend some $10 billion a year. What every woman wants, what will or will not induce her to buy, no one in the business can foretell with certainty. But when a new style captures the feminine taste, it pays off. And on the rare occasions when some new idea precipitates a real revolution in fashion, the whole industry flourishes. Such a revolution was the new look which swept the feminine world not long after the war. At one stroke, the new look made obsolete practically every garment owned by 50 million American women and faced the garment industry with the profitable necessity of replacing the national wardrobe. The idea which launched this revolution came from Paris, to which the women of the world have looked for centuries as the source of creative fashion. For despite a temporary eclipse during the war and the German occupation, Paris still retains its historic position, and the world-famed establishments which cluster together near the Champs Elysees still originate the styles the world follows. A new designer, Christian Dior, was chiefly responsible for launching the most recent fashion revolution. Breaking away from the law to open his own establishment, Dior became world famous overnight when his first collection, based on what promptly became known as the new look, won instant acceptance by the women of fashion, the fashion editors, and American buyers whose influence makes styles. But Dior is only one of a galaxy of brilliant new French designers of whom the world became aware at the war's end. Some of their establishments were opened only after the liberation. Others had been already founded and were prospering during the German occupation. Many of the new designers have won international recognition for the originality and chic which placed them in the true line of French tradition. One of those whose fame has grown most since the war is Pierre Balmain, who opened his establishment in 1945. An admirer of the well-groomed look of American women, Monsieur Balmain has achieved a reputation in the fashionable world of being a master of dramatizing simplicity. Despite the recent successes of a whole field of younger designers, the great and long-established names of French haute couture are still magic today, as they have been to generations of elegant women the world over. In the same establishment as before the war, Lucien Lelong, for years president of the Couturiers Association, carries on the well-ordered business which has made him one of France's most distinguished fashion leaders. For nearly half a century, the famed house of Lanvin has held its place as one of the great fashion establishments of Paris, and its prestige persists today, even though its founder is no longer living. The feeling for glamour and grace which marked the designs of the founder and made her the first couturière ever to receive the Legion of Honor is typical of the house of Lanvin today. But the brilliance of its top designers is not the sole reason why Paris has so long retained its fashion leadership. Another reason is the skill of its low-paid needleworkers, a skill acquired only through years of application. The patient attention to detail of Parisian seamstresses helps to make a fine French dress a work of art and to give to Paris dress labels the prestige they carry throughout the Western world. But big names in the world of fashion have also emerged across the Atlantic. In New York City, centered around Fifth Avenue and 57th Street, are the smart shops and couturiers establishments which most immediately direct the course of American fashion. Some top New York designers create for big retail stores, as in the case of Bonwit Teller's Fira Benenson, whose work is known across America. Others maintain their own establishments, like Hattie Carnegie, some of whose designs are made up for individuals, while others are sold through shops across the nation. Among a small group who have established an American couture is Valentina, who creates for a clientele which includes many celebrities like opera's Gladys Swotha. In this internationally recognized category is Charles James, whose clients include the Countess Austin Cassini, Mrs. Harrison Williams, and others of note. The trends such top designers create expensively for the few will ultimately filter down to the many. In the closely related field of accessories, big names have also arisen. Brooke Cadwallader is a headliner in the designing of high-fashion textiles and scarves. Handmade by the silkscreen process, his prints are priced within the reach of only a comparative few, but the influence of the name Cadwallader on fashion is nationwide. Styles in handbags and leather goods can be traced to the designs of such craftsmen as William and Elizabeth Phelps, whose products, often made of rare and strange skins, carry the cachet of the artisan. In jewelry designing, talented artists like Jean Schlumberger originate elaborate ideas which are the despair of manufacturers who serve the mass market. In millinery, a few leaders possessed of fertile imaginations are chiefly responsible for the continually astounding headgear of the American female. For an original chapeau dreamed up by John Frederics, well-heeled women may pay anywhere from $35 to an occasional $750. In making known the work of such true originators, the editors of fashion magazines like Vogue play an important part. Constantly on the alert for fashion trends, these magazines select for illustration the clothes and accessories they consider most significant. Photographed by specialists like Horst and glamorized by noted models, editors' selections are passed on to the fashion world. The influence of fashion magazines is far greater than their circulation would indicate, for their readers include leaders of the dress industry and those few hundred well-dressed women whose acceptance of a new style idea is enough to launch it as high fashion. Along 7th Avenue, below Times Square, lies New York's teeming garment district. Here, where fashion becomes big business, are made 3/4 of the mass-produced clothes bought by American women. The 3,800 dress firms crowded into this area turn out garments which wholesale anywhere from $3 to above $300. Typical of the largest is Lombardi Dresses Incorporated, with an annual output of some 2 million garments. Its products, designed for the woman who pays from $15 to $25 for her dresses, a figure slightly over the U.S. average, regularly win the favor of shrewd out-of-town buyers. Of the samples buyers see, only those for which orders are placed are put into mass production. From the original model, patterns are cut and traced on paper markers, from which as many as 100 dresses are cut at one time. The job of assembling and sewing is let out on contract by most large dress firms. Garment workers, who 3 decades ago were notoriously underpaid and exploited, are today protected by a powerful union whose representatives conscientiously police the industry. Old hands at detecting abusive labor practices, they keep a constant check on employers and workers alike.
I see your union cards. What do you gentlemen want?
We're from the union. Have you an authorization for overtime?
No.
You all know this is a contract violation. You'll have to report to union headquarters at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And Ed, you go up to the Employers Association and file a complaint.
With a membership of more than 375,000, the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, ILGWU, is one of the strongest and most enlightened unions in the country. Under the leadership of David Dubinsky, it has brought great benefits to both workers and employers. Through studies of management methods, the union has been able to force the adoption of reforms which have put an end to much of the anarchy and inefficiency which formerly plagued the industry. Its research staff is also constantly developing more economical and efficient working techniques. For this union knows that to protect its workers against unemployment, it must help protect management against financial loss. The constructive influence of the union upon the dress industry is partly due to Julius Hoffman, vice president of the ILGWU. It was he who started the New York Dress Institute, an organization of 1,000 member firms whose purpose is to improve marketing methods and to keep the U.S. aware that New York is the center of the dress industry. Twice a year, the Dress Institute welcomes to New York the fashion editors of 150 leading newspapers. Throughout an entire week, known as Press Week, the visiting editors and writers from the national news syndicates cover the new collections of the top-ranking wholesale houses. The Institute's Public Relations Department sees to it that everything is done to make their work easy and pleasant. On parade during Press Week are the collections of every noted designer in the wholesale market. What Claire Potter is doing in sports clothes and how Nettie Rosenstein is handling her evening gowns are minutely reported by ladies of the press who know their fashions. When the fashion reporters have weighed and appraised the season's offerings, their verdicts go to the 48 states and the Dominion of Canada. The fashions that may have originated in the glamorous realms of the Rue de la Paix or been created by Fifth Avenue's genius are now on their way to America's 50 million women, along with all the more indigenous fashions worked up by Seventh Avenue's own designers. What the nation's press and the mass-circulated magazines report on the season's fashions, whether from Hollywood or New York, soon becomes gospel. Women in every whistle stop or midland suburb are as up-to-date on American style as most of their urban sisters. In every small town, stores sell the same dresses available in the great shopping centers of New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. For American women have learned to demand and get the fashions they have seen and read about, however little they can pay. And though high fashion in the United States, as elsewhere, is reserved for a comparative few among the wealthy, millions of American women share the secret of a smart appearance. Catered to by an industry which runs the gamut between mass-produced simplicity and extravagant luxury, the 50 million determined consumers of American fashion are well on their way to becoming the best-dressed nation of women in the world.